of what our goal was, which was to increase our representation as a community and add diversity to government, not just at the federal level and at the top, but also at the state level and down ballot. So one of the great wins we had as an organization for Impact was that a number of our state office down ballot endorsees were elected in November. And that includes a number of state senators in New York, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and one of those who we're really proud of and just excited to see take office is State Senator Jeremy Cooney in Rochester. I'm excited to have a conversation with him. And for those of you who don't know his background, he has an extraordinary story. He was born in an Indian orphanage, adopted by a courageous single mom in Rochester in a neighborhood of South Wedge. He got his start in politics and public service in the office of Congresswoman Louise Slaughter. And since then, he served in the Rochester city government and in a number of community positions. And we're really excited that this was a really big win in November, where he flipped a seat and is making history and really supporting some policies that I think many of you would love to hear about. So with that, let me just welcome Jeremy and congratulations. It's so great to see you in your office, I think, right now.
Well, thank you, Neil. It's great to see you too. I know it's a pretty plain background because we just started 2 weeks ago, so we don't have anything up on the wall, but we're here, and we're here thanks to Impact. So glad to be here.
We're so proud of you. You ran a really exciting campaign. I know one of the things that we worked on together that you talked about was an event with Andrew Yang, who is a proponent of universal basic income, and you came out in favor of that in terms of policy. And I want to talk about policy, but given this is Impact and our goal is representation and getting Indian Americans and members of our community and South Asians generally involved in government, tell us about your story and your background and kind of your connection with the community. And you have such a extraordinary story. I think it's important for folks to hear that.
Thank you, and I'm glad to share my story, and it may hopefully be a story that others share who are watching today's broadcast. So I came to this country as an adoptee from an orphanage in Calcutta, India. I came at a very, very young age. My mother, Anne, decided that she wanted to start a family, but as she would tell you, she didn't want to wait around for a husband to come into the picture. So she got started with me, and so she took the brave and courageous decision to adopt me, and I came right to Rochester, New York, upstate New York, and she raised me by herself. She never found that husband, but the two of us were peas in a pod, and she took great care of me and raised me in the city of Rochester. And I had the opportunity to actually go back to India with her several years later and kind of have that cultural immersion, that kind of cold set of water in your face where you realize this is your homeland. And it was really an incredible experience. We were there for just a little over a month, and I had a chance to go back to the orphanage I'm from. Unfortunately, when I was in college, the orphanage shut down. It was International Mission of Hope, or IMH, in Calcutta. And so they just ran out of funds, unfortunately. But it was a really unique orphanage in the sense that in the late 70s and early 80s, I was born in 1981, I'm 39 years old. In that time period, there weren't a lot of services for women who were not able to take care of their baby. They were pregnant, but didn't have a safe place to deliver their child. And so my birth mother knew that she could not take care of me. And I don't know anything about her circumstances or her background, but anonymously was able to come to International Mission of Hope, deliver her her child, me, safely, and then go on with her life, but knowing that I would be raised in a safe environment and hopefully adopted one day. And thanks to Cooney, that dream was made possible. So I came to the United States as a young child. I became a citizen at a young age as well, and raised in Rochester. I mean, obviously, I always joke that I'm the tannest Irishman you ever met. But I've got Jeremy Akbar Cooney is my full legal name, and raised by Anne, and found opportunities to just reconnect with my Indian heritage throughout my life. But I really wanted to just take a moment and just share the experience I had. And Neil, you and I have spoken about this before. It was so impactful to me. And that was a few years ago. Impact hosted a gathering of Indian Americans and South Asians from across the United States in Washington, D.C. It was built as kind of a workshop and a training, but also an opportunity for kind of professional development and encouragement for more Indians to run for elected office. Bipartisan, which I thought was great, and really just having representation of people who look like us in levels of government. And I went to that conference. I didn't know anyone. I went by myself. I knew one of the organizers, and it was so moving for me to walk into a large room, beautiful room inside the Beltway, and see a bunch of people who look like me. Now, they may have had more Indian-sounding names than Jeremy Cooney, but it was just so impactful to see so many Indians who were passionate about public policy and about making a difference in their community. Some who had thick accents, some who had come to this country as a young child, some who were raised by first-generation parents. Just that cultural heritage shared story was really impactful. And I think back to that moment now, because here we are just hours or days and hours before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, then Senator Harris, was a speaker at that event and talked about her cultural heritage and connection through her mother, India. And so I think about where we've come as a country and even my own growth and development since that meeting. And I'm just very grateful for Impact for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't in charge then, but I was there.
Take the credit.
And I had the same feeling. And, I know Deepak and Raj and Minnie and the team and Gautam are all huge fans and really excited that you've won and have talked about you kind of being involved since then or being part of the community. And I think it really speaks to the broader notion of, like, even within our community, there's so many diverse experiences, but overall our goal is to see a government and that's inclusive, and to give people that chance to see themselves in positions of leadership. So when did you first see that? When did you first think that, this is something that I could do?
Well, I was one of those overachieving Indian children, right? So
yeah, that part is, yeah.
I didn't have the Indian parents to tell me that, although I had my mom, and I talk about her in the past tense because I should note that my mom did pass away a few years ago, which is one of the reasons why I got into in my interest in running for office. But I say overachieving because I was involved in everything, right? And I was active in Boy Scouts. I was active in my student governments. I was active in a number of kind of youth leadership opportunities growing up. And I would say the moment that kind of clicked over for me was when I was in college and then law school. I had the opportunity of being student body president at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, where I attended. I was the president of the Hobart student government, and then also president of my law school class at Albany Law School. And in both of those experiences, I had the opportunity to sit at a table with individuals who were making decisions that impacted me and impacted my classmates. And I felt a real privilege of being able to, speak up on behalf of others who were not able to be in the room. And I really enjoyed that experience, and I felt that responsibility very earnestly. And I think that's ultimately what drove me to want to be in the room again. To use that Hamilton reference, in the room where it happened. And after I lost my mom a few years ago to cancer, like so many other New Yorkers and other citizens have gone through that process, unfortunately, I was very frustrated by our healthcare system. Healthcare system in this country, healthcare system in New York. It just didn't work for my family. It was very complicated and expensive and frustrating. And I thought we could do things better. And so ultimately I made the difficult decision to run for office. I put my career on hold. I had to take out some loans. I was the underdog. I was a Democrat. I am a Democrat. I was running against an incumbent Republican who served for many years in the seat. So it was kind of a David and Goliath story. This is 2018. And that was when I got that opportunity to get some training from Impact and some other organizations of support. And we came close. We did a lot of work. We worked very hard, knocked on thousands of doors. And I can tell you that I just didn't give up. We didn't go away. We put a lot of work into that campaign, and ultimately we were successful in November of 2020 when we did win the seat. But now I'm in that room, and it's starting to set in, right? It's, after the campaign is over, it's time to get to work. And I have a great privilege of sitting in the New York State Senate, which is really the center of action when it comes to public policy making for New York. There are 63 senators in New York, all with statewide jurisdiction. So we're talking about issues in my neck of the woods here in upstate New York, in the Finger Lakes region, but we're also talking about issues facing New York City and the challenges of this healthcare pandemic. So it's a real privilege to be in that room. You'll be pleased to know this, Neil, that one of the other impact supported candidates, my dear friend, Senator Kevin Thomas, who represents part of Long Island, Hempstead area, who made history. He won in 2018 and did a great job. He's been holding the water by himself. So we always joke that now there's two people for our aunties and uncles to call when they have questions. But he trailblazed for us, and now there's myself in the Senate and Jennifer Rajkumar, who serves in the New York State Assembly, representing part of Queens. And so we formed a samosa caucus. It's only three of us.
Needs one.
Well, it's New York, right? It's New York.
Yeah, it's overdue,
Yeah, and we're here to support each other. I mean, we're obviously all impact supported, but we're here to support each other and grow together and interact with members of our community, whether they're in Long Island or Queens or Rochester or other places, and let them know that you should run for office. You have a voice. People who look like us can serve and can win. And that's a responsibility and a privilege and something I take really close to my heart.
That's awesome. We've got a question from Kishan in DC. It says, Senator Cooney, my parents live in upstate and worked for New York State government. They would love to support you. How can we join your mailing list? I assume they go to the website, but you can answer that. Also, we have friends in Rochester. We can connect. In 1995, you won't believe this, I was actually assigned to intern for your predecessor, Joe Robach, when he was a Democratic Assemblyman. So proud a fellow Desi is replacing him.
Wow, that's really powerful. Well, first, thank you for your parents' service to the state of New York. And please do visit our website. It's just rocksenator.com, ROC senator.com. And you can click there to go to our campaign page or our government page. It's kind of a landing spot. But my email address is right on there. Please do reach out. We'd love to hear from people. We'd love to be of help if we can. And that's what a small world.
I need to connect you both. He's got to run again too in DC. Just he
ran. Awesome.
Yeah. For a council. Yeah.
That's awesome. And again, I am so excited about having the opportunity to work with Impact and other groups to help support other Indian candidates running for office. I can tell you right here in Rochester, we have a pretty large Indian community because of our focus. Our economy is really eds and meds, right? So education, higher education, and we have the University of Rochester, which is proudly in the 56th Cent District. It's the largest employer in all of upstate New York and the largest healthcare provider in all of upstate New York. My wife actually is a healthcare provider for the University of Rochester. So we have a pretty large South Asian population here. But I'm always trying to encourage people not only to register to vote. That is number one. You got to register. You got to have your voice counted. But also think about running, whether it's for a school board seat in your town or village, or whether it's running for a state office or hopefully beyond. Right? There's so many opportunities.
So let me just cut you for a second, because I really want to talk about where you are right now in terms of your transition into government, because there's so much happening. I mean, you're in New York, so everybody at least pays some attention to what's happening with Governor Cuomo, and given how much the state has been impacted and was really the hardest hit early on in terms of COVID. Like, how are you preparing? Do you know what committees you're going to sit on or what legislation you're going to be working on? Like, are you getting what is your orientation? I'm sure there's no kind of manual, although maybe there is, but what's like, how are you kind of immediately doing what you can do to help your constituents, who I'm sure have plenty of questions on vaccines and everything else?
Yeah, lots of questions and a lot happening. So I serve on the Cities Committee, Cities 2, which focuses on upstate New York communities like Rochester. I serve on committees related to higher education, transportation, criminal penal codes, focused on arts and culture, focuses on kind of the bread and butter issues of state government. And I try to just really be transparent in what I'm doing and try to get as much information possible to then translate back to the community that I serve. Half of the role of an elected official is just being accessible. People are having trouble getting through that mammoth New York State government bureaucracy. They need someone to call. And we're happy to take those calls and advocate on behalf of folks. So we're doing our best to be responsive.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an agenda item or something that you ran on that you maybe want to see introduced as one of your first bills?
So I'm focused on healthcare and making healthcare more affordable. And one of my first priorities is to focus on maternal health and making sure that women get the healthcare needs taken care of pre and postnatal. And this is something I've heard a lot about, especially in communities of color. And that's what I'm focusing on my first bill on.
And I assume, I mean, your story, that's very much your inspiration, and given what you said about your mom, what do you think what do you think in the city of Rochester, like what are the most, I mean, healthcare obviously is across the board is one of the highest needs. And as you said, are there things in terms of the pandemic and the recovery? I've seen a lot on your website. You've talked about kind of small business being the engine, even though when we think of Rochester, we think about like Kodak, and you've said it's not just the Fortune 500. What are your thoughts there in terms of how to help the community post-pandemic?
Rochester struggles with poverty. We have one of the highest concentrations of childhood poverty in New York. We have the worst performing public school system in New York, where I graduated from. We've got real challenges. And I believe that one of the ways to help post-pandemic is to make sure people have jobs which earn a living wage, that they can live in affordable housing with dignity, that they feel safe in their communities. That means improving relationships with our police departments, and that they have access to a good paying job that allows them to start a family and hopefully raise a family here in Rochester. So it's a multi approach to give good quality of life to people. But I do believe if we paid people a living wage, the quality of their life would increase. And that's something I remember every day when I come to work. Yeah.
Hopefully we see some of that happening at the federal level now with the change in the Senate and the president. So I think, there's definitely some alignment there. Are you, I know in your race, we had Andrew Yang come in to endorse you. What are any thoughts on his potential run for mayor, or are you making any endorsement?
Listen, I love Andrew. I actually, in full confession, yesterday was Andrew's birthday, and also when he officially announced his mayoral run. So I did text him, and I told him that I was very proud of him, and I'd love to find ways to support him. He is he's very special because he's truly thoughtful. He's innovative. He cares about other people. He has real life experience, whether it's starting a business. But what I love about Andrew more than anything else is that he's a risk taker. He's not afraid to try new things. I don't agree with every one of his policies, but he doesn't just sit on his hands and shrug his shoulders. He says, let's try this. Let's use data to evaluate if it was successful. And if it wasn't, let's tweak it and try something different. And I really appreciate that fresh approach to government, because we don't need more, folks who just give up or are cynical. We need people who have fresh perspectives, who are hopeful, who want something better for their own families and for your family. And I believe Andrew is one of those voices. I'm very excited that we're going to see a Biden administration that reflects the diversity of this country. Just look at the cabinet picks and nominees so far. Unbelievable. Incredible talent, new faces, some experience being brought to the table, but positive, forward-looking energy, not one of divisiveness, but unifying our country, getting people back on track so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. That's the promise of America. That's the promise of a Biden-Harris presidency. And that starts just next week. And that's going to trickle down to New York, right? New York is one of the biggest contributors to our country's economy. And so a strong America requires a strong New York. And I'm looking forward to partnering with the president-elect to do that type of work.
Well, we're very excited to see what you do as you get started. And I'm very excited just for impact. I mean, having you as a champion and a partner in New York, I would love to talk about down ballot races, how we can organize the community, get more people elected at the council or municipal level, given that you've worked in city politics as well. And you're clearly just an inspiration to many people, starting with your student governments to your law school student government to the city of Rochester. I'm sure many people watching can see why you get the votes and why you were able to make history in your community. So I just want to thank you. We can close. We're close to half an hour, but appreciate your time and would love to keep talking and working together and doing what we can nationwide to get better representation, and also helping candidates talk to each other. I'm sure there are many people like Kishan and others who will want to learn from your experience and take that into their own communities too.
Right on, absolutely. And I encourage all of your viewers, if you are interested, please do reach out on social media or on email. And if we can be helpful, we certainly will. This is how we change what American government looks like, if we are talking and supporting each other. And I'm committed to doing that work.
Okay, thanks, Senator.
Thank you, guys.
And as a reminder, that was a fireside chat with New York State Senator Jeremy Cooney. If you joined us halfway through, feel free to watch from the beginning. Our host was Neil Makija, Executive Director of Impact. Thank you for joining us.